Mistranslated lines have steered entire countries off course, and others have cost lives, wars, and decades of confusion. Here are 10 translation mistakes that changed history, with origin, context, what was said, and how a slip turned into disaster. 1. Mokusatsu, the silence that sounded like defiance. In the summer of 1945 in Tokyo, journalists asked Japan's Prime Minister what he thought of the ultimatum presented by the Allies. He answered with the word mokusatsu. In Japanese, the term can mean to ignore with disdain, but it can also mean no comment for now, or we'll evaluate in silence. Headlines in the West chose the harshest reading, as if it were an official refusal. That interpretation fed the notion that there'd be no immediate peace talks and hardened positions in Allied capitals. The war continued until the bombings in August. It wasn't the only cause, but the ambiguity of a single word became fuel at the most combustible moment of the century. 2. The Treaty of Waitangi. 2 translations, 2 countries. In 1840, in New Zealand, Maori chiefs signed an agreement with representatives of the British Crown to organize sovereignty and land ownership. The English text said the Maori ceded full sovereignty. The Maori language version used Kawanatanga for governance and preserved Tino Rangatiratanga, which expresses full authority over lands and resources. To local leaders, it seemed they would keep control of what was theirs. To the British, it seemed they'd received everything. Decades of conflict, confiscations, and court cases followed. The country only began to treat the wound when it recognized that a translation gap had planted a colossal misunderstanding that required legal and political redress. 3. We will bury you, the line that chilled the world. In 1956, at a diplomatic gathering in Moscow, Nikita Khrushchev said something that was translated literally as, "We will bury you." In colloquial Russian, the expression can also mean, "We'll outlast you, we'll be at your system's funeral." In a moment of high tension, the more aggressive reading won. Inflamed headlines, hardline speeches, and a re-energized arms race followed. An idiom turned into an existential threat and made an already distrustful climate even worse. 4. Está intoxicado, when a false friend costs a normal life. In 1980, in Florida, a Cuban-American family took a young man to the hospital and said in Spanish, "Está intoxicado." To the doctor, who didn't speak Spanish, it sounded like "he's high" or "he's drunk." In many Spanish-speaking countries, however, intoxicado usually indicates poisoning or food intoxication. Treatment followed the wrong lead while the patient was suffering a brain hemorrhage. He survived, but with permanent impairments. The case became a symbol of the need for trained medical interpreters and protocols to keep a misunderstood word from changing a life's course. 5. A Middle East resolution and the missing article. After the Six-Day War in 1967, the United Nations Security Council approved a text calling for the withdrawal of forces from occupied territories. In English, the line appeared without the definite article, "from territories occupied," which some read as a partial, negotiated withdrawal. In French, Spanish, and Russian, the versions read more like "from the occupied territories," implying totality. For decades, an invisible article became an argument in maps, negotiations, and walls. It wasn't grammatical nitpicking. It was a point that fed opposing interpretations and stalled agreements. 6. The joke that almost killed machine translation. In the 1950s, labs were trying to translate automatically between Russian and English. To test systems, they used phrases with metaphors like, "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." One system returned something like, "The vodka is good, but the meat is spoiled." The anecdote spread worldwide and was used to ridicule the entire field. The side effect was serious: funding cuts, frozen projects, and a brain drain. Decades later, with data and compute, the field was reborn. But the lesson remained: a funny mistranslation can set a technology back for years. 7. Columbus and measuring the world, numbers that spoke different languages. In the late 15th century, Christopher Columbus studied Arab authors on Earth's size and converted their measures into European standards. In the process, he mixed up mile types and treated a larger circumference as if it were much smaller. He underestimated the ocean between Europe and Asia. He set out thinking Japan was just ahead, and found a continent that wasn't on his patron's map. The error wasn't just geographic, it was a translation and unit conversion stumble, one history would repeat in other fields. 8. the probe that turned into silence on Mars. At the end of the 20th century, international teams worked together to insert a probe into Martian orbit. One group calculated thrust and forces in pounds force. Another expected those values in newtons from the metric system. No one converted the units in the navigation software. The craft dipped too low and was lost to the atmosphere. There was no televised explosion, just silence, embarrassment, and millions of dollars gone. It was a numerical translation failure with a planetary impact. 9. The Gimli glider. Fuel conversion gone wrong. In the early 1980s, a Canadian airline was transitioning to the metric system. On a routine flight, the team fueled the jet by calculating the amount in pounds when the onboard system expected kilograms. Mid-flight, both engines quit. The crew turned the jet into a glider and made an emergency landing at a decommissioned airbase, saving everyone. It became a story of cockpit skill, but also a reminder that converting units is a safety issue, not mere paperwork. 10. Horns on Moses. When light turned into horns, the Hebrew text says, Moses came down from the mountain with his face radiating light. In ancient Hebrew, the verb that indicates shining is very close to the verb that suggests horns. A Latin translator of immense authority chose the wrong reading. For centuries, artists sculpted and painted Moses with horns. It didn't topple governments, but it shaped Europe's religious imagination, fueled confusions and caricatures, and showed how a slip in moving from the sacred to the vernacular can leave marks in marble, stained glass, and minds. If you enjoyed this video, tell us in the comments which case surprised you the most. Hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to see more videos like this. Share it with anyone who loves history and curiosities.